Hey guys, in this video, this is the first video to be shot in studio number 3. Now, we've spent quite a bit of time putting studio 3 together, and this one is actually the workshop, so it's much bigger than the other areas, and we've got some pretty serious tools for doing what we need to do in here. And this has been put together over a long period of time, but the actual build for the studio was over the last 2 months. And if you've noticed, we kind of dropped off a little bit on the videos because this has consumed so much of our time. Still, most of it is complete and we're ready to get on with it. So in this video, we've got the Sen Racing Reeper, and it's a pretty cool truck, I gotta tell you. Running at 6S, damn near the same size as the X-Max. It has its issues with the vertical plate chassis. The weight is way high in that truck, and today we're gonna do something that's cool. We're gonna move the weight forward, all the weight that we can, and we're gonna drop it down a little bit to try and center that up. And we're gonna change the tires up again to see if that makes a difference. This video is kind of a precursor to what we're gonna do in the Brutal review. So we wanna make sure and do these mods first so we can see how they handle and all that good stuff. Then we'll get on with that one. This should be pretty cool, guys. Check this out. Okay, but before we get into the build, we want to go ahead and go over what we're actually going to do here. And let's start with the tires. Now, these are the Reeper tires, and these are the ones that come with it. And they're pretty cool. They really are. I like the look of the wheel on the car. It's really nice, but I'm not a fan of this design. This is the V-rib chevron design, and it has a problem. See how smooth that rolls? It has a tendency to roll over rocks and whatnot, and it costs you traction when it does that. These don't drop down into the rocks and stuff very well. They work pretty good in sand, light sand, and they work pretty good on the pavement, but that's about where it ends for these. So in another video, we had done a modification and put these on it, and these are X-Max tires and wheels. And they're pretty cool, but they're proprietary. These are only designed to go on the X-Max, so you have to do some milling on the inside. This is 24 millimeters, so with the adapters on it, these will fit right on it now. Those are 23, which is not really standard, so that's kind of a problem. So we put the adapters on it so we could get these in there, and you have to mill out the counter studs in there that keep it on Traxxas only. Once you get those milled out, these go on pretty good and they work well. These are kind of worn and they've been on it a while. And the nice thing about these is it allows the car to slide in the corners because it's not so aggressive, but it slides a little more than I like. So what we want to do here is we're going to forego these in favor of these. And these are copperheads. These are off the Creighton 8S, and these are cool. Now they're just about the same size as the X-Max tire, but they've got a little more aggression on the tread pattern, which is a really nice tread pattern. They have the 24 millimeter hubs on the inside, and it has this nice metal cup in there, which will keep it from stripping out if things loosen up a little bit. Really good feature. The difference being the offset on this is just a little closer to the car than the X-Max one, so it's going to cost me just a little bit of width with that, but if the performance on these is good, it'll be worth it. Besides that, we're going to go ahead and let's take a look at this real quick, and we'll show you what we're going to do here. So this is the chassis for the Reeper, and as you can see, it's a vertical plate chassis. Pretty cool looking, right? But that's where that ends, really. Because the flat chassis run across the bottom like this, all your components mount down low. Speed control, motor, servo, batteries, gearbox, all up top, which means when you get into a corner, there's a lot of top weight to try and flip it over. So if you put really aggressive tires on it, I put some Pro Lines on this, and every time you turned, it would flip. So we really want to get that weight down as far as we can. It's going to be a difficult thing to do, but what we're going to do is we're going to delete the battery box that's here in the back. That's this one right here. And we're going to mount the batteries forward because this is a wheelie monster as it starts. So we're going to mount these right here someplace and try and get that battery weight down. And that should help by moving some of this top back weight down to the front. And that should also try to keep the front down a little more, make it a little more manageable when it's on the ground. I think that's going to work, and we're going to give it a try today and see how that goes together. We're also going to run 2 different types of batteries in this thing, and we're going to run 2 of these. These are 5200 milliamp hour 3S packs, which will give us 6S, which the car is capable of. And we're going to run the 2S packs right here, and these are 5200s as well. There's a pretty good weight difference between the two, and there's a pretty good power difference. It'll be interesting to see which one handles best. So let's get down on the bench and get started. Okay, so we've developed a little bit of an issue with the build, and that's what these prototypes are for, to try and get things to work the way you want them to, but it doesn't always work the way it should. And I'll get you a close-up of this, but down inside here, with the wheels off and the offset just a little bit different than the X-Max had, when you crank it all the way, it gets really close to the battery, and that's not a bad deal if it doesn't touch, but these tires grow, and under a turning maneuver, it's gonna grab the Velcro and it's gonna grab the battery, and that's not a good thing. So we're gonna have to set those batteries back one spar, and that means moving it from this set of spars back to this set of spars. It should be a straight over change, nothing too severe. I really wanted to check it out this way, and I suppose I could at 2S, but it's a 6S car, so we got to use 3S batteries on each side. They're a little bit wider, but that's what it's designed for. So since we have that situation difference, we're gonna go ahead and move those back off camera just to get ready for the tests. So as soon as we get that done, we're gonna get on with the tests. Check this out. That is so much better. That's impressively good now. All right, guys, so there are the tests for the new position for the batteries, and I have to say, I was a little disappointed when I first did it, and you guys watched me do it. You know, it was a situation where it looked one way, so without the wheels and tires on it, right down in here, it looked like I had a lot more clearance than I actually did, and of course, we mounted it on the forward spars here. The thing is, it wound up needing to be back one set of spars to clear the tires. Now there's plenty of room to clear. Check this out. There's lots of clearance in there now, which allows for everything to work good. Keep in mind, this is hard shell case batteries only, because it will take rocks and debris in the corners here. Now, if you do jump and you get up in the air with this thing, this aluminum piece at this elevation will hit the ground a little bit depending on what the ground is like, debris and rocks and whatever. The thing is with this part is you really shouldn't be jumping this in the first place because the chassis is not supposed to hit the ground. And during the jumping and the testing, and of course we try not to get big with our air, but during the testing, we did pop out one of the drive axles in the front because when the suspension overextends itself, it pulls the drive lines out, and that's just the way it's designed. We've tried different shock absorbers and all that stuff, and we did blow out another shock doing that because of the plastic end piece. Right down, excuse me, right down in here, this little cap, that's plastic. All the way to the car compounds and lands on this plastic piece, and that's not okay. It's kind of a faulty design in my opinion, but it is inherent to the car, and that's a problem. Still, if you don't do any really big jumps, you know, 3-4 feet off the ground at speed, should be no problems. But if you start going upward, you're gonna break this. It's just not designed to take that. If you run the car the way it's designed to be run, this thing can be a blast. And with these tires on it and 6S, which is 3S per side, at that, it really claws through stuff good and it's a lot of fun. We did test it with both the Copperheads and the X-Max tires and wheels. We checked it at 4S with 2 2s and 6S with 2 3s, and it worked great both ways. It's a lot of fun even with just 4S in it, and it keeps the weight down because the 2S batteries don't weigh as much than it does with these, but it's a bit more grounded with the 3S batteries in there, and you can feel the difference in control when you move them from all the way back here, which your batteries would normally sit here. And that's a lot of top weight, guys, it really is. And you stack 2 of those side by side and it's real tail heavy. And when you go to turn a corner, this tries to pull the ass end of the truck over. But once you move them up here, it becomes way more stable. And beyond that, there is also the placement here, and inside of here, on the outside of this chassis plate, and this is both sides, there are screw heads that stick out for all of the components that add on, from the transfer case to the battery box, servo assembly, all that stuff has bolts that stick out. Now, that's not a big deal because you can find a spot to set your battery in there that clears those. Take a look at this. Right down into this Velcro area, it's definitely got, well, let's turn it around and show you. So on this area right here, there's a bolt that goes through, or a screw for the transfer case. That one, we found a hole in the battery box. If the battery box you choose, and you don't have to use these are just the first ones we found on eBay when we searched battery tray. So these ones popped up and we bought them on eBay. But there's a hole here, but if there wasn't, I would have drilled one to get it to sit there. So it's easy enough to add these to this spar and this spar, because those are the mounting screws. You can put a nut on the back and you're golden. They hold really well. And we tested it pretty hard to make sure they didn't break and come off. These are solid. However, we did have to clear this bolt here, and when we were shifted forward, we had the radio box to deal with. Well, knowing that we had the radio box as an issue, we went ahead and moved it back some, and now we're able to change it out and put the stock radio box back in it with no modifications to that, because it did set it back some. Wasn't really a fan of that, but we do have a waterproof receiver in it, and so it wasn't that big a deal. Put a little tape on there to deflect the rocks, dirt, and debris, and let it ride. It seemed to work pretty good. So is this a perfect RC? Well, I really don't think there's a perfect RC out there, but this one is a whole lot of fun, and you know, it's pretty easy to work on. Still, with the batteries in their stock location, it does set the center of gravity way too high, and it likes to roll a lot. Moving them up front definitely was a good idea. Still, if you don't like the fact that we're down low even with the chassis here, you can raise them a little bit. It still will bring the batteries up front, which will help with controllability. You can still get your wheelies on when you want to, especially at 6S. This thing is a monster when you pin it. Still, I really like the Copperhead 2s. They work really good as well, but they are the heaviest ones out of the group. For what we had, the stock ones, right? These are the 23 millimeters that come with it. The tread kind of sucks on these and they don't work that well, but they are the lightest ones in the group. Second up, the X-Max tires. These come in just a little bit heavier than the stock ones, and they work really well. Still, the heavier ones, just a bit more. These things, they weigh a little more, gets a little more weight down on the ground, and I think it does help. We did shatter one of these wheels, but I'm pretty sure we shattered that on the Creighton and not this. But still, there's a lot more cracks in it now than were. It's a little out of balance, but it's still holding together, so we're still running it just because I don't have another one to replace it at the moment. So there you go, guys. That is the battery mod for the Sen Racing Reaper. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. It's awesome when you do, and it lets us know you like the content. You know, here at the channel, we love doing modifications, but rarely do things ever go the way you want them to on the first round. You know, there's always gonna be something, the weight displacement, the placement altogether, things like that. Sometimes you're gonna have to use your mind and think your way around a problem, and that's what I personally find exciting. Getting the batteries in the right place didn't happen all at once. Without the tires and wheels, it looked like it was gonna mount in the first spot just perfectly, but once we get the tires on, and I know I should have checked it to start with, but once we got the tires on, we noticed that we had to move it back. It was a simple matter of drilling an extra hole and setting it back one spar. It worked out just fine. If you guys have done modifications to your Sen Racing Reaper, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below and help others along the way. Hey guys, I'm AJ with AJ Jam Studio saying, keep wrenching, guys.